It's Monday, April 6th, 2026. My sleep schedule has been, well, I think the right word is wackadoodle since February of last year. That is to say that since I took a trip to Taiwan in last February for like a week and a half, and that was well over a year ago, my average wake up time has been around 5 a.m. In fact, haven't used an alarm to wake up since then, outside of a few exceptions where I found myself waking up later than usual. I am proudly teased by my friends to be the first one to bed most of the time, and that is generally the case. I haven't always been like this, though. In fact, back in college some 20 years ago, I was the quintessential night owl. I remember multiple times being up until dorm breakfast started past 6 a.m. And to their eternal credit, some of my classmates that were in my 8 a.m. statistics class were willing to meet me at breakfast and then carry in and turn in my homework that I had done while class was going on, and I finally went to bed. Most of my time working, I spent waking up to a phone alarm. It varied too, usually between 6 and 7 a.m. for an 8 a.m. start, based on whether there was a commute in the picture. I remember liking to travel to the East Coast in my flying all the time days, less than the West Coast, because that extra hour of time difference in the mornings often made a significant difference in my general sleepiness levels throughout those fairly packed weeks. On the West Coast, though, I'd often have time to both eat breakfast, and then nobody out there generally wants to work past 3 p.m., so it was pretty fitting for me. That and the food scene on the West Coast is almost always better than what they've going on the East Coast for business travelers. I remember my dad often being the last one in bed when we were growing up. I'd often spend the post bedtime hours reading a book or playing a handheld game when I was young. It was often hours of hearing dad playing guitar or browsing away on the early internet, most likely on forums related to guitars or the Florida Gators sports teams. I think both of those habits were in part due to just resenting having the next day already accounted for. I wasn't super thrilled with the regimented, pre scheduled school days, but Dad's time was even more spoken for between late 90s corporate life in the defense industry and his then compulsory dad life when he got home. For the past 14 months or so, though, I have been waking up at 5 or earlier with no outside influence. Well, not quite no outside influence. I will say, though, that this little rascal, yes, I'm talking about you, does have some influence on my more recent habits. She's at her most active around 9 or so at night and around 4 to 5 a.m. in the morning. As soon as she hears me shuffling around in bed, she'll hop on to make biscuits if I'm awake enough to. And if I'm awake enough to trot across the little hallway to go to the restroom, she will start to then inform me that it is playtime. Yeah, won't you? Truth be told, she's far more worth waking up for than anything I'm trying to do in the dark of night, anyway. Aren't you?